Hello everybody, in today's video what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be doing some food illustration painting with some watercolor. Now this is something I've not done before, as I've been practicing my watercolor painting and I've been practicing a lot of landscapes, and I wanted to try something a little bit different. And I was recently looking online, and I've seen these amazing illustrations that people have done of watercolor and gouache with food, and I wanted to give that a try. So what I've done here is I'm doing like a classic burger and chips meal here, sort of like something you would get from McDonald's or any sort of like fast food sort of joint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and replicate some food images with using watercolor. Now this is definitely something outside of my comfort zone, as I am still completely new to watercolor painting, and I've only really been practicing landscape with the odd character painting here and there. So doing something like this is different for me, and I thought it'd be fun to try out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process here, sort of going in like a time-lapse fashion and just talking to you as I go along and paint this, talking about how I've done this. So one of the things I've done here is I decided to put our food here on a chopping board, just trying to make it sort of like a little bit more fancy in its display. Now I'm definitely not good at doing like a realistic wood textures or anything, but this is, like I said, to learn some new skills, try and get some things, knowledge in terms of doing watercolor and learning how to paint this sort of stuff. And like I said, food illustrating is something I've never done before, so I wasn't sure how to do this, but I wanted to be bold, give it a try, and just try what I thought was best. I wasn't really looking at any YouTube tutorials or anything for this. What I was basically doing is I had a picture next to me and I was just trying to recreate some things that I seen on there. So it's not completely perfect, but it's trying to get the idea across that things are what they are by painting with watercolor. So originally in the painting that I was doing, sort of when I was laying down my initial sketches, I actually had all of the chips or fries sort of scattered all over the chopping board there, trying to make it look nice how they do in a lot of photos. But I was finding it very difficult to get a lot of little weeny rectangles stacked on top of each other in a convincing sort of pile without making it look super flat on the ground, as I'm still, you know, getting used to art and everything like that. But by putting it in a little bowl that I have here just sitting on the chopping board itself, I sort of, by having them protrude out in sort of different directions, I think it gave me a little bit more realistic, like there is something actually in the bowl, compared to when I was on the ground trying to lay out every fry on an angle. It was taking a very long time and I just wasn't getting the 3D effect, and I think it would have looked like they were like melting into the chopping board. I didn't like that, so that is why I went with doing this bowl here, having them, and I think it just gives a little bit more realistic look, like there is something protruding out and hopefully resembling some sort of fry or chip. So then once we had those fry painted, it came to the main event of the painting here, which is painting up the burger itself. I went for sort of a classic sort of like a cheeseburger look, which was hopefully what I was trying to get. Hopefully it comes across too as I'm painting it up. But when I was preparing for this, I really did enjoy the colour that I managed to mix together for the burger buns themselves. I think it looks very much like a how would you say, like a McDonald's burger colour, essentially, as it's not like a hard out realistic depiction of some sort of bread. It looks very like what you imagine it to look like in a cartoon or animation, or even like how they sort of glorify burgers in their artwork itself. I was really quite proud of the base sort of colour that I came up with for the burger bun itself, and I think it looks really fun. And I think by putting in, because it's basically a mixture of yellow ochres and oranges to give it that sort of like real interesting bread look, and it really helps separate it out from our fries that we had in that bowl as well. I definitely wanted to make sure I did that, and by adding in some orange to the yellow, I think really helps sell it as a burger bun and a completely different texture that the food is made out of. So at this point here, it was time to come in and do that nice juicy meat patty, and for this part, this is probably the part that I was most nervous with while painting in this burger here, is I didn't know if I was going to be able to get it to come across as like a nice juicy patty. And what I did was I actually ended up at this time looking at a few artworks on how people do watercolor food, and they leave a lot of little irregular gaps in there of complete white to show off like shine and reflection and stuff on there. So what I ended up by doing, and by having also a lot of like different colors in that entire one piece, by what I pretty much interpreted that is, if I stippled it on, if I sort of dragged the brush around somewhere, just tapped the brush on, stippled it in areas, and sort of leaving really irregular wavy patterns on there, it was giving the effect that I was really hoping to get across, and that was the like juicy meatiness of it, and giving complete different like reflections off there, the bounce lighting, everything like that. It just really started coming together when I was sitting there using different brush strokes and textures, because before this, you know, up to this point, I've just been using sort of nice wide sweeping brush strokes, and that's definitely something I'm going to take with me in the future when trying to do more organic things, is to practice a little bit more with different brush weights, sensitivities, and like stippling into the areas itself to try and give a regular texture with only using one color, which was great too, because it was the same color throughout, as you can see doing this pattern here. And by stippling on little bits of areas, you naturally got darker bits and lighter bits, so I think that was a really cool thing to learn. And then so when it came down to where I was doing the cheese in the step just beforehand as well, I was also doing that same step, just not quite as crazy and showing all of those textured spots, as also with it being yellow as well, sort of makes it a bit more harder to see on camera as well. But this is definitely where I was starting to get a little bit of feel for how they get those natural looking textures and colors on the food illustration, which was really fun to learn. And as you can see here, I was doing the lettuce on the top of the bun here, and doing that exact same texture technique that I just learned from the patty and the cheese underneath it, placing on top of it and coming in with swirly lines, different textures. It really did, I think, to me anyway, in this whole piece, that those bits of area that are just between that bun, I think, are the most effective and look sort of like the most like of an illustrated piece of food, and it just looks super lively and interesting to me by having all that sort of different line weight and texturing. So that's been really cool and fun to learn, even if the rest of the image is a little probably so. I'm still quite happy with it, but learning that technique in just those last few steps has been really helpful to me. So it's always fun to learn something new when you're doing artwork like this. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go into those glamour shots and see how the whole painting process came out in the end, and hopefully you will enjoy it too. And there you have it. There is my completed first full watercolor artwork of doing a food illustration. In this case here, a fast food illustration of a nice burger meal. So I hope this has been interesting for you guys, whether you want to follow along with what I did here, or you just want to use this video as some inspiration in your own artwork. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.